But I am pleased to welcome now, live on KXEL via Zoom, the new police chief for the city of Waterloo, Dr. Joel Fitzgerald. Chief, thank you so much for taking the time and joining the folks on KXEL this morning.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to introduce myself to the much more wide audience here in the Cedar Valley.
We wanted to have Chief Fitzgerald on as soon as he came to town, and that was, of course, before so many of the national stories and protests in the city. We're going to touch on those during this conversation, his first extended conversation with the media, and I'm glad that we're able to share it with you. But I wanted to talk about some broader concepts. Mayor Hart is on this program at least once a month, and when he selected you as his choice to recommend, of course, the question was, well, why this person? And he talked about your background, your philosophy of policing, the training opportunities that the city would have, and a number of other things. What is it that attracted you to this position to lead the Waterloo, Iowa Police Department at this point in your long career?
Well, this department has I don't think it's any question that from a community's perspective, especially the racially polarized community of folks that feel disenfranchised, it had a strained relationship with that particular area of the community. And I felt that some of the things that I've been able to exercise in other police departments to build community and policing relationships would work very well here in the city of Waterloo. And after interviewing and speaking with the mayor, I believe that we came to the agreement that, hey, there's a lot of different programs and strategic planning processes that, if implemented here in the city of Waterloo, would create a great relationship with members of the community, but also help push this organization toward increased professionalism. And the folks here do a fantastic job of keeping crime down and are trying their best to, actually build relationships with community members. But sometimes you need a different voice and different face pushing from the rear, and taking those hits from the front that you probably saw, over the last few weeks, where I'm interacting with a lot of the citizens who are truly frustrated about how they've been treated or perceptions of how they're treated here in the city of Waterloo.
When you look at the department from the outside, did you find this to be something that, and I'm not going to use the right terminology and I apologize, was this something that needed to be just torn down and built up from the beginning, or did it simply need to have that different leadership? Because all organizations have the right leader at the right time, and who's the right leader at this time may not be at another time. So is this a matter of simply refocusing or rebuilding in your mind?
It's definitely a matter of refocusing on things that matter, not only for stakeholders and business in the community here, but community stakeholders as well. The department could benefit greatly from having focus groups comprised of members of the community, along with business community stakeholders and other city management stakeholders, to determine what's best for the organization and how we're going to move forward to achieve it. If you don't have that type of input and interaction with all stakeholders, you probably aren't tailoring your efforts towards what the community and what the businesses in the community would like to see out of your organization. It's, again, I have to say, it's not a tear down. It's just a refocusing and a strategic change in mission, vision, values, guiding principles of the organization.
Joel Fitzgerald is the police chief for the city of Waterloo, sworn in Monday night following the council meeting. Rather active first week on the job. And he's talking with us live on News Talk 1540 KXEL. I'll play devil's advocate. There may be people listening who say, well, you just said that the department has done a nice job of keeping crime down. Well, isn't that the job of the police department? So what's all this other stuff? What's the response to those who say, well, if crime is being kept down, that's your job. Well, what's the rest of this? How does this all fit into it for those who don't understand the complexities of law enforcement these days?
Well, perhaps in years gone by, that was our job. But police are now tasked with being, as I put it, the Swiss Army knife of social services. We're also, tasked with building community relationships and rebuilding bridges with the community to move things forward. If we don't have a great relationship with the community, the likelihood of us solving crime and preventing crime is decreased. We see in our nation today what disenfranchised members of the community being upset and angry with police actions can do across our country. It can tear down the very fabric of what we work towards, and adversely impact not only those underprivileged communities, but communities of privilege in our country. We do not want social unrest. We do not want to be seen as an occupying force. And, although we do one portion of the old traditional police job well, we can enhance other portions and be more of an active and I should say interactive part of what's going on in each and every fabric of our community. Right now, organizations across the country are taking a very hard look at implicit bias and the amount of goodwill we're building with communities by building a sense of procedural justice. And if you don't know what that means, it's, in short, owning some of the things that, hey, Joel Fitzgerald wasn't responsible for. I may have been in this business for 29 years, but I wasn't working during the 1950s and the 1960s when dogs were set upon people of color in the country. But it happened, right? So owning the fact now that those things happen, even though I wasn't a part of it, and many of these officers in the city of Waterloo Police Department weren't a part of it, matters to members of the community, because those interactions that went very negatively for some have had generational impacts on families and have made people unemployable, have really kept the economic growth of certain segments of the community down. So yes, we have a different charge now, and it is a multifaceted, like I said, Swiss Army knife services charge that calls for us to be really better at other things. We're great at keeping crime down, but we have to be great at community relations as well.
Waterloo Police Chief Joel Fitzgerald joining us live on KXEL on this Thursday morning. I was not out at night in Lincoln Park or on the streets any night this week, so I'm relying on reporting that others have done. And if I'm not mistaken, on Monday night, right after you were sworn in, you talked with many of the protesters at the point where things were peaceful in Lincoln Park and having a dialogue about what you wanted to do. And they responded by saying, in essence, well, what about the reforms we were promised X number of years ago? And we've heard all of this before. How difficult is it to come into a situation in this role when a large segment of the population, or at least a segment of the population, is saying, we've heard all of this before, why is it going to be different with you? That's a challenge.
It's a challenge, but in fairness to members of the community that were out there, many really left that interaction or listening session with a renewed sense of hope. Yes, there were people that were frustrated with years of being promised that they'd have better relationships with members of the police department or even government in general, because, hey, we do represent city government. We are the most frequently contacted, branch of city government that most people see. So I believe people weren't really disenchanted, but needed an opportunity to voice their feelings, needed an opportunity to see that a police chief would listen and answer their questions to the best of my ability, I should say, and not need, a 20 police officers surrounding me because I'm in a crowd of 200 to 300 people that seem, at times unruly, but in reality, they were upset. And they had a legitimate reason for being upset. So I felt comfortable enough to spend hours upon hours there answering questions to the best of my ability. And I left there, I believe, with a different level of respect from the community. I believe that things could have potentially been much worse had I not been willing to face community members and answer some very poignant questions about what we intend on doing to make things better. And, you know, I believe our city's better off for it. And I'm happy to say that, you know, there's members of the community that probably wouldn't have come to me and spoke to me about any problems or concerns they had, but that gave them the forum to air their issues and to hear and to look me in my eye and see that I meant that there were positive changes coming.